Chapter 46. The blind rotation. The dorm lights rose in a slow gradient, shifting from rusted amber to sterile white. The sound of the ventilation grid hummed in rhythm with the soft vibration of the station walls. Richter groaned as he rolled off the upper bunk, armor harness clattering. So he muttered, voice still gravel, any guesses what we'll pull when our cores wake up? Taren was already stretching, her braid falling over one shoulder as her joints cracked like snapping cables. If the universe has got a sense of humor, I'll get force. Something simple. Smash first, think later. Nyra smirked as she laced her boots. I'm betting lightning. You move like a short circuit already. Loud, fast, mostly destructive. Richter grinned. Better lightning than water. I'm not patient enough to sit around adapting. They laughed, short, tired, but genuine. It was the first sound of warmth the dorm had heard in days. Bash didn't join in. He sat on the edge of his bunk, elbows on his knees, eyes fixed on the floor. His armor rested beside him, clean, precise, aligned perfectly edge to edge. Taren caught his reflection in the mirror panel. You're quieter every morning, she said. He didn't look up. Focus doesn't end when the lights go out. Richter raised a brow, the grin fading. Yeah, but maybe blink once in a while. You look like you're trying to win a staring contest with destiny. Bash finally met his gaze, the hint of something unreadable in his eyes. Maybe I am. No one pushed further. They'd all seen it. That quiet, dangerous calm that had settled into him since the loss. Lecture. Something had hardened behind his eyes. Not anger, not fear, just purpose. They suited up in silence. When they stepped into the corridor, the air felt heavier, dense with unspoken expectation. Their boots struck metal with the same cadence that had marked nearly a month of training. No one needed to speak. The path to the coordination facility was carved into their bodies now. The coordination facility shimmered under a soft blue haze. Hologrids pulsed along the walls like veins, feeding data from unseen cores. The cohort formed into lines out of instinct. Jouk waited at the platform above them, still as a statue, his armor catching the light like tempered glass. Jouk stepped forward, hands behind his back. Before we begin, understand this. I'm disabling all holographic feedback. You will not see your performance metrics, coherence values, or personal ranks. From now until the bell, you'll have nothing but your own effort to measure progress. No distractions, no safety. A murmur flickered through the ranks, uncertainty, curiosity, maybe fear. Jouk brushed a command across the console. One by one, the data screens vanished. Blue lines dimmed to a faint grid, leaving only the dull hum of the facility. He looked down at them, each divided into two halves, gross motor and fine motor control. You'll complete both. You know the drill. No breaks, no recalibration. Treat every motion as though the portals were already open in front of you. He paused. Begin. The floor came alive. Several platforms rising, drones whirring into formation. Holographic weights, locking into place. Half the cohort charged into gross motor drills, broad movement, force, power through repetition. The other half fell into fine motor calibration, precision, micro adjustments, symmetry. Without the holographic feedback, it felt like fighting blind. There was no comforting glow to tell them when they succeeded, only the strain in their limbs and the rhythm of their breath. Bash moved in silence, his breathing synced to the mechanical pulse beneath the floor. Every movement felt sharper than the last. Cut, recover, pivot, strike. Across from him, Richter's hammer strikes landed in steady, rhythmic thunder, each impact echoing through the chamber. Nyra's twin blades traced perfect arcs through the air, while Taren's balanced motions flowed with surgical precision. WH, and the bell for the first rotation sounded. It felt too soon. Switch, Jouk commanded. They swapped seamlessly, fine to gross, gross to fine. Bodies adapting like programmed metronomes. The second rotation hit harder. The absence of numbers gnawed at them. The human instinct to measure had nowhere to rest. The only calibration now was pain. Sweat slicked their fatigue seams. Breathing deepened. Jouk's voice cut through the haze. Ush, essence doesn't negotiate with exhaustion. It consumes it. Your Spartors, move like it. They obeyed. Even when their timing faltered, the correction came not from data but from instinct. When Bash shifted into fine motor mode, he could feel the subtle tremor in his hands, the small betrayal of fatigue. He'd ignored it. He imagined the red dots of the loss again, steady, pulsing, mocking, and let the focus burn through it. By the time the bell signaled the switch, his arms ached, but his movements hadn't slowed. Now the drills blurred into endurance. Every action fed the next, thought dissolved into rhythm. Jouk stalked the edge of the formation like a predator. His voice, usually measured, now cracked like a whip. You call that precision? You think the portals will wait while you breathe? Move! He was losing his calm, They could feel it. Rixer gritted his teeth through a hammer sequence. He's losing it, he muttered between breaths. Taren, eyes locked on her drills, replied, no, he's testing if we will. By the final switch, most could barely stand upright, yet not a single Spartor stopped moving. The air buzzed with heat. Every breath hurt now. The metallic tang of recycled air mingled with the smell of sweat. The drills no longer felt like routines. They felt like survival. Jock's commands grew sharper. Faster. You've grown comfortable. You mistake fatigue for limitation. Move. Fine to gross. Gross to fine. They switched again. The repetition drilled deeper than memory. It was reflex forged into muscle and mind. Bash barely heard him anymore. His focus had narrowed to a tunnel, the steady rhythm of motion, the rasp of breath, the weight in his arms. When the fourth bell sounded, half the cohort stumbled. None fell. The fifth began like thunder. Jock's voice hit the walls at full force. Harder. You think Essence cares about your pain? You think enemies pause when you breathe? Prove you belong here. The seat. Cohort erupted. The floor shook under synchronized impacts. Sparks arced from the resonance grids. Bash's world was motion and sound. The hammer of Richter's weapon, Nyra's sharp exhale, Taren's footsteps slicing through cadence. Halfway through, Jock's shouting rose to a fever pitch. His face, normally composed, twisted in intensity, an emotion none of them had seen before. Don't slow down. This isn't a test. It's the line between life and erasure. Then came the final switch. Fine motor drills. The hardest. Every movement demanded precision when precision was nearly gone. Hands trembled, vision blurred, focus fractured. Jock's voice became a rhythm of fury and command. Stay on it. Don't think. Move. Control like D. The noise built until it filled every corner of the hall. And then, thud, and why the bell. The silence was instant and complete. Dozens of Spartans stood frozen, shoulders heaving, bodies trembling, the echo of their exertion still vibrating through the deck. Jock stood motionless on the platform. When he spoke, his tone was calm again, the storm wiped clean. Enough. He turned to the console and activated the holograms. The room lit in white and gold. 5 numbers appeared above the cohort. 87.3, 86.9, 84.5, 83.1, 80.6. No one moved. You maintained above 80 for all 5 rotations, Jock said. His voice carried a trace of something unfamiliar, approval. The Nexus requires 3. You surpassed it in every cycle. You'll go in as Novix, he continued, and some of you will come back with your abilities awakened. All of you, however, will be tested. The cohort began to disperse. Exhausted bodies moved toward the exit. 2 groups remained. Bash's 7 and Zicof's and his team of 5 blues. The silence that settled between them wasn't hostile, but it wasn't comfortable either. Not just in strength, but in control, judgment, and focus. What happens inside those portals will determine who's truly ready to stand among the Spartans. The statement lingered. Dismissed. The remainder of the day is yours. Rest, train, think. Rixer dropped heavily onto a bench, wiping his forehead with the back of his glove. 87, he muttered. Didn't think I'd see that number without dying halfway there. Taren snorted. You almost did. Callan still paced near the projection wall, restless energy rolling off him. He said tomorrow's the debrief. Our Yule's points structure were finally setting up for the team competition. Finally, Dark said, leaning back against the railing. We've been training for this since the first rotation. About time they stopped measuring us by drills. Leora folded her arms, calm and steady. They won't just be measuring us. They'll be trying to break us. Every test from here on is designed to push past training and see who holds their mind when everything else fails. Across the room, Zicof stood with his squad. His gaze flicked briefly toward Bash's team. Not a glare, not a challenge, just acknowledgement. For the past several days, the 2 groups had been in quiet competition, their scores leapfrogging with every rotation. One day Bash's team led, the next it was Zicof's Blues. The rivalry was unspoken but sharp, built on respect and precision rather than pride. Rixer followed the look and gave a faint smirk. Guess Zicof's Blues aren't celebrating neither. Nyra didn't glance over. They don't need to. They already know tomorrow's just prep, and that we'll be right there beside them when the real test starts. Cordial rivalry, Dark muttered, unstrapping his gauntlet. The best kind, makes losing tolerable. Callan snorted. You planning to test that theory? Not a chance, Dark said, grin returning. Bash stayed silent through it all, eyes still on the dimmed holograms overhead. When he finally spoke, his voice was even. Tomorrow, we listen. The day after, we make sure no one doubts why we're here. The others nodded. Behind them, Zicof's team began to file out chants for team preparation before the real competition began. Calm, collected, their quiet professionalism mirroring their rivals. The rivalry wasn't bitter. It was sharpened respect, the kind forged in repetition, where both sides knew the other was good enough to matter. Bash glanced toward the corridor where they disappeared, then turned back to his own team. Let's not waste it, he said simply. Inside the Nexus, the faint lattice glow began to rise, the sound of systems initializing filling the air like steady breath. Each Spartor stepped into their harness, neural links activating in sequence. A soft voice echoed through their comms, synchronization in progress. Prepare for group resonance simulation. As the lattice field solidified around them, Ash felt the familiar compression of the virtual construct folding into existence, light, sound, and motion blending until the training chamber reformed around them. They had survived the rotations. Now came the refinement. One last thank you for reading this chapter. Your support means the world to me. If you enjoyed it, please consider giving a thumbs up, leaving a positive review or a comment. It truly helps a debut author like myself. As this is my first novel, I am still learning, and I would love to hear your constructive feedback to help me improve. I'll do my best to reply to your comments if you would like a better understanding of Bash's origin and family. Check out my book Before the Genesis. It tells the story of Kyle and Abby and has some lead up right into this novel. Rundock Chapter 47, The Portal Debris. The lights in the dorms lifted slowly, washing over steel and shadows until the faint hum of the ventilation filled the silence. The metallic tang in the air hadn't changed in weeks, but today it carried something different. Map's lesson. Focus to the point of silence. Silence beats panic, Nyra said, fastening the lock on her wrist pad. He's right. Preparation's the only thing we can control. Rixer groaned. You're all impossible in the mornings. Bash stood, tightening the straps on his fatigues. Then it's a good thing mornings don't care. That earned a faint grin from Nyra and a low chuckle from Taren. The group gathered their gear in silence, the tension between them taut but familiar, the quiet before movement, before focus reclaimed them completely. When they stepped into the corridor, the hall was already alive with motion. Doors opening, other teams emerging from their quarters, muted voices carrying down the long steel stretch toward the coordination sector. The coordination facility felt wrong the moment they arrived. It wasn't quiet. It wasn't dimmed for a briefing. The lights burned bright, holo grids alive. Drones hummed overhead, suspended in motion. Weighted pillars thrummed faintly underfoot. Rixer blinked. This doesn't look like a debrief. Jouk stood on the upper platform, motionless, eyes reflecting the light like glass. Good. You're early. Prepare yourselves. For what? Callan asked, half joking. For the unexpected, Jouk said flatly. One rotation, both gross and fine motor. No breaks, no score projections. Get it, everything. Gee, you have. A murmur rippled through the cohort. They thought today would be rules and paperwork, not sweat and endurance. This is not a warm-up, Jouk continued. This is an evaluation. The goal is not completion, it's perfection. You will aim for 100%. If you're holding back, you're already behind. He turned sharply toward the command console. Again, the floor came alive. Platforms groaned as they rose from the deck, locking into place with a hiss of compressed air. Light strips ignited, spreading across the surface like veins of molten circuitry. Overhead, drones detached from their docking rails, descending with soft mechanical hums as their resonance sensors came online in synchronized pulses. Half the cohort broke left toward the gross motor cores, the rest, T to the fine motor grids. The division happened in practice rhythm. Every Spartan knew their lanes by instinct now. Bash's team landed on the gross motor side first. It started deceptively easy, balanced beams, weighted sleds, shifting platforms. Then the course shifted. Magnetic pulses rippled through the floor, altering gravity vectors mid-step. Beams angled, tiles rotated. Resistance fields surged from the walls. Everything that could destabilize balance did so at once. Bash ran first through the gauntlet. The air buzzed against his fatigues as he crossed a magnetized field, his body leaning into each counterpull. His boots hit the balance beam, every step precise, shoulders tight with control. Ahead, the path shifted, a moving platform with force pulses firing at random intervals. He waited, felt the pattern through vibration rather than sight, and left the instant the charge dropped. Behind him, Richter powered through the weight columns, muscle straining as the pillars pressed back against his every push. Sparks of friction lit underfoot as Taren bolted the shock gaps, flipping between narrow rails with clean grace. Callan, quick and unshakable, cut through the vertical lift section, weaving between swinging pendulums that blurred through the haze of electric light. Each breath became a rhythm. In, move, shift, strike, exhale. The course wasn't designed to exhaust them. It was designed to break rhythm, and yet Bash never lost it. The sound of his boots on steel, the hiss of his breath, the flicker of drones overhead. All of it blurred into one seamless pattern. Switch! Jauch's command cracked through the air like lightning. They didn't hesitate. Half the cohort shifted lanes, those on the gross motor side moving to fine motor, and those from the fine crossing back to gross. The chamber never paused. The rhythm never broke. The gross motor course roared with movement as new runners hit the balance beams and weighted tracks. Bash's team veered into the precision grids. The air was already alive with sound, clicks, pulses, vibration feedback from hundreds of microsensors testing accuracy and control. There was no dimming, no cue to reset. Everything stayed active, every station running as part of one continuous, living circuit. The field itself felt aware, reacting, adjusting, adapting to whoever stepped into its zone. Bash entered, his sequence without missing a step. The fine motor grids demanded precision, narrow balance lines, reaction pads flickering with random intervals, resonance rings that pulse with unpredictable timing. His hands moved before conscious thought could catch up. Every strike, tap, twist, and adjustment was reflex, each gesture flowing into the next like choreography burned into his nerves. He tracked the patterns not with his eyes but with his body. The floor hummed beneath his boots, faint vibrations telegraphing shifts in frequency. The air carried the rhythm of motion, the breathing of others, the thud of impact, the whisper of motion cutting across metal. He could feel Richter a few stations over, muttering short curses between gritted breaths. Nyra was silent, completely still until the next pattern erupted in light, her reactions instantaneous and clean. Taren's section clicked in counter time, her fingers striking at impossible speed across a reflex grid. Around them, the other half of the cohort stormed through the gross field again, leaps, landings, strikes, impacts, all blending into one orchestrated chaos of endurance and focus. There was no separation now between the two halves of the exercise. Fine and gross had merged into a single, continuous system. Every Spartor moved to maintain pace. To stop meant to fall behind, to lose the rhythm, and once it was lost, it was nearly impossible to recover. Bash's heartbeat synchronized with the pace. His body responded before command. His thoughts blurred into instinct. He felt the course, not saw it, reacting THR. All the soles of his boots and the pulse in his fingertips. The resonance waves brushed his skin as they shifted frequencies, testing sensitivity and response speed. He anticipated before the pads lit. The pattern became everything. Then the memories bled in, unbidden but sharp. Emily's face, the static red dots on the atlas, his family's last moments flashing between heartbeats, the promise that still burned like iron under his skin. He didn't reject the pain. He drew from it. Each movement grew sharper, faster, more fluid. The line between discipline and emotion blurred until both became the same thing, drive. He wasn't just completing the pattern anymore. He was commanding it. The rhythm intensified. His heartbeat synchronized with the pulse of the grid. Each note flashed at the exact interval of his breath. The world compressed to pure focus, no fear, no exhaustion, just intent. He didn't feel the burn in his muscles, didn't register the sweat that clung to his neck. His fatigues felt weightless. Every motion was instinct, precise, silent, absolute. And then, the bell. A single tone cut through the air, pure and final. The grid lights dropped instantly, leaving only the echo of the sound reverberating across steel. Dozens of Spartans froze in place. The heavy rhythm of their breathing filled the chamber, uneven at first, then slowly steadying. Sweat beaded along foreheads and rolled down necks, catching the flicker of cooling lights. Ash stood motionless in the fading glow, chest rising and falling evenly. Around him, others collapsed to one knee or braced against nearby supports. The hum of drones wound down to silence. The cohort had reached a point where exhaustion no longer mattered. Training had carved it out of them. Within seconds, the panting eased, posture straightened, eyes refocused. The silence that followed was heavy, not of relief, but of recognition. They had all just crossed a threshold. Bash exhaled once, slow and steady, as the last drone docked overhead. The test wasn't about endurance anymore. It was about who could turn instinct into precision. And he had. Jauch descended from the platform. His voice carried easily even in the still air. Good work. You've been training to endure. Now you'll learn who can excel. A flick of his wrist, and the hollow boards above the arena blazed to life. This wasn't a test, he said. It was a competition. Gasps and murmurs echoed around the room. The top 3 will receive permanent T2G grade weapons, each with an imbued resonance. Choose carefully. Your weapon defines your evolution. 3 names pulsed on the display. Bash 98.0, Zicof 97.2, Nyra 96.3. Richter let out a half laugh. You've got to be kidding me. Callan elbowed him lightly. Try being good next time. Jouk ignored the chatter. Winters stepped forward. The wall panels folded open, revealing a rack of suspended weapons gleaming in blue-white light. Swords, polearms, rifles, and bladed gauntlets floated in containment fields, humming with quiet resonance. Bash moved first. His eyes swept across the selection until he found them, 5 compact throwing knives suspended in a semicircle. The edges shimmered, red faintly crimson, fine veins of light crawling down each blade's surface like living circuitry. These, he said. Jouk nodded once. Tier 2 G'd imbuement, Razorvein. Upon impact, the target's tissue fractures and continues to tear, inducing extended bleed and critical structure damage. Effects scale down with target tier but remain constant in duration. Permanent binding. The blades floated into Bash's hands. They pulse once, syncing with his core, the glow fading to a dull scarlet. Zicof approached next. His choice was immediate. A long, slender sword, its silver-white blade streaked with emerald light. Tier 2 G imbuement, kinetic surge, Jouk announced. Momentum reinforcement proportional to user velocity. The faster the strike, the heavier the impact. The sword hissed softly as Zicof drew it from the containment field. He gave a short nod of approval, expression unreadable. Finally, Nyra stepped forward. The rifle that unfolded before her seemed almost alive, plating sliding into place with mechanical precision. Tier 2 G'd imbuement, stun, Jouk said. Rounds are lethal by design. However, when a shot fails to kill, the residual effect induces neural interference team's combat performance and yield potential significantly. They should help your team rank high. Bash's lips curved slightly. Good. Anything that helps us gain better gear, faster advancement, stronger equipment, it all gets us closer. To what? The system asked. He stared at the ceiling for a long moment before answering. To being ready. Anticipation. Bash was already sitting up, fully dressed, as said in the issued Nexus fatigues. Light, reinforced fabric designed for mobility and limited protection. His boots were sealed, cuffs tight, collar snapped. The others were only beginning to stir. Rixer yawned, rolling off his bunk. You've got to relax, man. It's debrief day, not judgment day. Bash didn't look up. Preparation is never wasted. Rixer grinned and tossed him a protein bar. Maybe not, but nerves are. Eat something before you start thinking about murdering the rules. Taren stretched, rubbing the sleep from her eyes. He's been like this since, stunning targets of T2G level or lower for 0.5 seconds. The stun duration decreases by 25% for each tier above T2G and is effectively nullified at 4 tiers above. Nyra's eyes flicked to him. Duration consistent under rapid. Fire. Jouk's visor tilted. Assuming control, yes. Assuming panic, no. Good, she said simply, locking the rifle across her back. Applause didn't follow, just quiet admiration. The room respected skill more than noise. When the last weapon sealed into its owner's hands, Jouk turned back to the cohort. Now, he said, you'll learn why this matters. The walls came alive with projection, white portals spinning in a slow rotation, maps of unfamiliar landscapes and shifting coordinates. Each team will enter its own white portal. There will be no direct competition. The test is not to defeat each other, it's to outlast what waits on the other side. He gestured, and the display changed to show B silhouettes, data overlays flickering beside them. Scoring is as follows. Jouk said, V. Voice steady as the data glowed overhead. Classification points Tier 1 Common 1 Tier 1 Greater 3 Tier 1 Apex 12 Tier 1 Sovereign 50 Tier 2 Common 125 Tier 2 Greater 300 Every Beast Fragment retrieved adds its full point value to your total. Each team will receive a full map of their assigned world, including terrain and localized portal coordinates. The mission duration, 3 days. No extensions, no replacements. He looked over the rows of Spartors. Each team will carry one evac beacon. Choose your anchor carefully. Activation of that beacon transmits a signal to the QDP and initiates immediate retrieval. Extraction freezes your score and terminates your run. He let the silence stretch. Use it if you must. Just remember, no one has ever ranked high by playing it safe. A low rip of energy ran through the cohort. No one spoke, but every face tightened. Jouk's voice carried evenly across the chamber, amplified not by volume but by precision. Before you go, one more thing. The holographic displays behind him shifted, showing tables of data, currency icons, and Beast Fragment markers. Every portal mission yields spoils, Beast Fragments. You'll retain 75% of what you earn. The remaining 25 will go to the Spartor Council military for research and resource balance. Consider it your contribution to the whole. He paused, letting the number sink in before continuing. The top 3 teams, however, will receive additional compensation. If you like what was just awarded to Bash, Zicof, and Nyra, then you'll appreciate what's at stake. He projection changed again, showing 3 ranked columns labeled first, second, and third. The winning teams will be granted equipment rights. First place, 10 items, armor or weapons of your choosing. Second and third, proportionally fewer, scaled to placement. If a team wins more items than it has members, the excess can be converted into currency or fragments, or distributed internally at their discretion. Every piece awarded is eligible for use in the tournament. There was a faint murmur among the cohort, half disbelief, half excitement. Jock silenced it with a glance. You're not just competing for pride. You're competing for survival and advantage. The best teams will walk away stronger than they entered. The rest will learn why they didn't. He deactivated the holos with a flick of his hand. Dismissed. Select your Tier 1 weapon, confirm your packs, and report to synchronization at 0700. The cafeteria was louder than it had been in weeks. Excitement and exhaustion tangled together. Dishes clattered. Voices overlapped. Chairs scraped against the deck. Bash's team sat at their usual table near the viewport, trays half forgotten as they scrolled through loadout lists. Callan tapped his screen. 3 days, limited ammo, no resupplied unless scavenged. This isn't a hunt, it's a siege. She set the bottle down and tapped her wrist pad. The Nexus will process it all during the exit synchronization. Every movement, every decision we make inside the portal gets recorded through our resonance feedback. When we come back, it'll evaluate and score us the SOT. Anyway, it does our training. Rixer blinked, so we're being graded by a machine that doesn't sleep. Nyra looked up from her loadout list. Better than being judged by people who do. Zicof approached their table then, calm and composed. The faint green trim of his fatigues caught the low cafeteria light as he stopped beside them. Congratulations, he said to Bash. 98 is clean work. Bash stood, meeting his handshake. You weren't far behind. Zicof smiled faintly. Close doesn't count in the rankings, but it will in the field. Don't miss. He turned his gaze to Nyra. And you, 3rd place. Impressive. You outscored every blue in the cohort. Nyra gave a small, acknowledging nod. Guess they'll have to aim higher. A flicker of amusement crossed Zicof's eyes before he turned. Away. See you at the gates. When he was gone, Rixer let out a low whistle. How do you stay that calm when you're second? Discipline, Leor said. Same thing that keeps us from bragging. Rixer grinned. Oh, I'm bragging later. Bash's voice cut through, quiet but firm. Save it for after the portals. The table went silent. Then, slowly, everyone nodded. The walk back to the dorms was quieter than usual. The chatter of the cafeteria faded behind them, replaced by the steady rhythm of their boots on the deck plates. The hall lighting had dimmed to night cycle, casting a faint amber hue across the corridor. Inside their quarters, the team's nerves began to surface. Rixer dropped onto his bunk, running a hand through his hair. Tomorrow. Can't believe it's actually here. Taren leaned, head against the wall, arms crossed, trying to sound calm but smiling despite herself. 3 days in a portal. No contact. Just us and whatever's waiting. Nyra was already at her locker, laying out the new enhanced fatigues they'd been issued earlier in the evening. Thicker weave, heavier at the joints, layered with resonance thread armor plating. The material caught the light in subtle waves, built for real combat, not training. Bash inspected his own set carefully. Feels different, he said quietly. Better protection. Nyra replied. Won't stop a blade, but it'll make you work for it. They each began methodically checking their gear. Rixer lifted his warhammer, the weight of it familiar now. Balance perfect. Hard to believe this started as just weighted training steel, he said, turning the handle in his palms. Taren holstered her dual sidearms, spinning each one in a fluid motion before locking them into place. Silbridge as well, she said, almost to herself. Quick enough to shift from front line to cover. They each began methodically checking their gear. Every Spartor had been issued their first Tier 1 common weapon that morning, their choice of standard-grade equipment to accompany the new upgraded fatigues, along with a Tier 1 dagger provided to all for close defense. It wasn't luxury gear, but it was theirs. Rixer lifted his warhammer, the weapon dense and cold in his hands, its dull gray finish marked by faint training scuffs. The weight was familiar now, balanced perfectly. Hard to believe this started as just weighted training steel, he said, turning the handle in his palms. Feels like it finally means something. Taren holstered her dual sidearms, spinning each one in a smooth, effortless motion before locking them into place. Silbridge as well, she said, almost to herself, quick enough to shift from front line to cover. Nyra checked the charge on her precision rifle, the faint hum of the core resonating against the table. When she wiped the casing with a cloth, A thin blue arc shimmered along its surface, like lightning trapped beneath glass, the mark of her stun imbuement. Vash zipped his pack, verifying the placement of his Tier 1 sidearm and dagger beneath it. Then his attention moved to the set of throwing knives laid carefully on the table before him, his newly earned T2G blades. Perfectly balanced, eye crimson sheen rippled like liquid under the light. The alloy looked denser than anything he'd handled before. He lifted one between his fingers, tested the balance, and gave it a quick throw. The knife turned once midair and struck point first into the padded wall with a low thunk. When he retrieved it, a small, genuine smile crossed his face. Rixer noticed first. He smiles. Guess we can stop pretending we're all nerves now. Taren rolled her eyes, though the smirk betrayed her. Don't ruin it, Rixer. The tension broke, laughter replacing silence, anticipation replacing anxiety. The tension in the room eased. The weight of the coming day didn't vanish, but it settled into something steadier, shared confidence. They each climbed into their bunks, gear stowed, fatigues folded neatly. By the door, the low hum of the facility was the only sound as lights dimmed to a dull blue. Bash lay back, eyes tracing the faint glow lines on the ceiling. His thoughts drifted to the knives again, the red shimmer of their edges, the quiet promise of power. Then the voice of SC resonated softly through his neural link, calm, even, familiar. Congratulations, Bash. Those 2 weapons will increase your thank you for reading this chapter. Your support means the world to me. If you enjoyed it, please consider giving a thumbs up, leaving a positive review or a comment. It truly helps a debut author like myself. As this is my first novel, I am still learning, and I would love to hear your constructive feedback to help me improve. I'll do my best to reply to your comments if you would like a better understanding of Bash's origin and family. Check out my book Before the Genesis. It tells the story of Kyle and Abby and has some lead up right into this novel. We're on Doc Chapter 48. The white portal the dorm lights hadn't even cycled on when the 4 were already awake. None of them had really slept. The hum of the ventilation had carried the weight of the coming day through every hour. They moved in quiet efficiency, gear already packed, fatigue sealed, movements precise but slower than usual. Each checked and rechecked the same straps, the same clips, only to fill the stillness. By the time they stepped into the corridor, the air felt heavier, charged with the tension of 1,000 held breaths. The cafeteria glowed with white light when they entered, the sound of Armure conversation rolling like low thunder. The entire cohort had gathered. Trays of rations sat mostly untouched. 14 teams, ranging from 6 to 10 Spartors each, filled the long hall. Some sat shoulder to shoulder, whispering tactics. Others stared into nothing, counting the seconds. Then Jouk entered. He didn't raise his voice or his hand, but silence rippled outward in a perfect wave until the only sound left was the faint whir of the ceiling fans. He walked to the center dais, posture rigid, hands clasped behind his back, the faint light of the holo boards outlining the sharp planes of his face. Teams, he began, voice steady and resonant. You've done what few ever do. You crossed 80% faster than any cohort in recent record. That is not luck. That is disciple. And his gaze swept across them, sharp and proud in equal measure. But hear this. Scores are not survival. The portals will not care how well you performed in simulation. What you face beyond them will not forgive hesitation or pride. You will go in as Novix, and if you return, you will come back changed. Some of you may not return at all. The silence was absolute. Trust your training, Jouk continued, but more importantly, trust each other. In the portals, there are no individual victories, only teams that move as one. Multiple hearts, one rhythm. That's what keeps you alive. A faint hum built overhead as the whole board came alive, projecting rows of team designations and glowing numbers. Team Bash Portal 937. Rixer leaned sideways, muttering, "Why is it your name on it and not mine?" Jouk's head turned just enough for his voice to cut through the quiet. Teams are listed by their highest performer. Yesterday's scores decided that. A few smirks rippled through nearby groups, quickly silenced as Jouk shifted focus back to the board. Bash's eyes scanned the list instinctively until he found Zicof Portal 944. He didn't even know why he looked. No one knew what lay beyond their assigned gates. Only the Nexus did. He felt a small pulse through his neural link. SE's tone, calm and clinical. It doesn't matter what's on the other side of yours. You'll know soon enough. There's nothing to change now. He exhaled slowly. Right, he murmured. Soon enough. Jouk's voice drew him back. You will have 3 days. Return punctually. Late arrival means penalties and possible disqualification. Your recall beacon remains your last resort. If activated, extraction will be immediate. Your run frozen at its current score. Survival comes first, but you will not progress. He paused, letting the gravity settle before continuing. Your fragments and kills will be evaluated upon return. 75% of your recovered fragments remain yours. The remaining 25 contribute to the Spartor Council military. The top 3 teams will earn further reward, 10 pieces of equipment of their choosing, distributed or exchanged as they see fit. A ripple of restrained excitement ran through the crowd. Remember, Jouk finished. This is not ceremony. This is the beginning of your real assessment. The Nexus will measure every decision, every reaction. And you sync on exit. What you do in there defines what you become. He raised one hand toward the long corridor of portals behind him. Proceed to your assigned gates. Synchronization begins in 5. The corridor opened into a circular chamber alive with white resonance. 14 gates shimmered in a perfect arc, each numbered in cascading light. The air thrummed with contained power. It buzzed in the teeth and the bones. Vash's team halted before 937, the portal surface rippling like liquid glass. Energy pulsed outward in silent waves that sent a shiver down his back. Jouk walked the line one last time, eyes scanning every face. You've trained for this. Now trust it. Trust yourselves. He stepped aside. Enter. One by one, the teams vanished into the light, crossing the threshold was like stepping through the skin of a storm. Sound vanished first, every breath ripped away, every heartbeat silenced. Vash felt his body twist and scatter, the world folding around him like liquid glass. Gravity flipped, dissolved, returned. His stomach churned, his vision blurred to white, then black, then nothing. For a moment, there was no up, no down, only the crushing weight of disorientation. He tried to inhale, but there was no air. Then there was too much, flooding his lungs all at once. Light tore across his vision, brilliant, blinding, merciless. He hit ground, hard. A breeze touched his face. Cool, real. He blinked against the brightness, his breath catching as his vision struggled to adjust. The world around him was a swirl of color, vivid blues and greens bleeding eye, NTO grays and whites. He could hear something, wind in branches, water moving somewhere nearby, distant birdsong that felt both familiar and impossible. He pressed a hand to the ground. The texture startled him, soil, coarse and damp, clinging to his fingers. He rubbed it between his thumb and forefinger. Dirt, not simulation dust, not synthetic grit, real, heavy earth. His heart began to pound. The air smelled of pine and stone and water, sharp, clean, alive. It filled his chest in a way recycled Nexus air never could. The wind carried faint chill, brushing against his neck like breath. He lifted his head. Through the blur, shades began to resolve. Tall pines swaying, sunlight spilling through fractured canopy, mountain ridges rising in the distance like massive sentinels. The light had depth to it, soft, golden edges filtered through mist. It shouldn't have felt familiar, and yet it did. The others materialized behind him, one after another, groaning, steadying themselves. He heard Richter curse quietly, the crunch of boots on rock, Nyra's rifle locking as she tested her grip. But Bash barely processed their voices. The wind shifted again, bringing with it a sense so achingly real that it hollowed him out. He remembered mornings before deployment, dew on concrete, tree line mist over the base perimeter, the same exact pitch of wind moving through branches. The sky overhead was a washed-out blue, the kind of blue you only saw on clear Earth mornings. He swallowed hard, his pulse echoing in his ears. The illusion, or whatever it was perfect, too perfect. That horizon stretched endlessly, ridgelines overlapping like folded paper. A stream glittered below the incline where they stood, cutting through moss and stone in a winding path. Every sound, every smell, every glint of sunlight carried familiarity that burned. He took one step forward, boot sinking slightly into damp soil. It gave way beneath his heel with that same soft crunch he hadn't heard since that day. His throat tightened. For a heartbeat, he wasn't in the Nexus anymore. He wasn't in a portal. The others were still orienting, but Bash couldn't move. His gaze drifted over the trees, the misted peaks, the glint of water below. Every sense screamed Earth even as reason whispered it couldn't be. He didn't argue with either. He just stood there, heart sinking under the weight of recognition, the ghost of a world that should have been unreachable filling his lungs like the first breath after drowning. And for the first time since his family's deaths, Bash felt something he couldn't name. Hope, fear, disbelief, all blending into the same unbearable ache. The mountain wind carried the faint echo of something distant, lost in the valley haze. Bash didn't move, didn't speak. His heart sank. Thank you for reading this chapter. Your support means the world to me. If you enjoyed it, please consider giving a thumbs up, leaving a positive review or a comment. It truly helps a debut author like myself. As this is my first novel, I am still learning, and I would love to hear your constructive feedback to help me improve. I'll do my best to reply to your comments. If you would help a better understanding of Bash's origin and family, check out my book Before the Genesis. It tells the story of Kyle and Abby and has some lead up right into this novel. Brundock chapter 49, the first hunt Bash's lungs locked. The world tilted around him, too sharp, too bright, too familiar. The wind brushed his face like a memory, cold and clean. And suddenly he was 12 again, standing on the training fields near the mountain base. His body moved on instinct, but his mind was screaming, "SE, what the hell is this? Silence, answer me. You said Earth was still under reconnaissance. If we came through a white portal, that means occupation. That means they took it." Nothing. The quiet filled with his own pulse pounding in his ears. The rest of the team were still behind him, adjusting, blinking through the light, but he didn't hear them. He was shaking now, rage and fear mixing into something unsteady. "Tell me this isn't what I think it is." The neural link flared once, like static. Then, finally Bash. Her voice. Calm, too calm. "This is not Earth." He froze. "You are on world L-47, Spartor designation Kaelith," she continued, her tone clinical. "Terraforming and colonization began 103 Earth years ago, abandoned approximately 80 years later due to core instability in local portals. Atmospheric stability at 97%. Ecosystem self-sustaining." The information washed over him, cold and unreal. Kaelith's diameter is 1/4 that of Earth. Gravitational pull is proportionally reduced, 0.23 g. You will experience increased speed, strength, and acceleration. Your typical Spartor baseline, adapted for 4 times Earth gravity, will now exceed normal parameters by an estimated factor of 12. He blinked, meaning you can jump higher, hit harder, and fall farther without damage. However, her paws tightened something in his chest. The local fauna evolved under the same low gravity. Expect proportional mass and velocity compensation. Do not underestimate them. He stared out across the ridge, his anger dulled, replaced by confusion, and something worse. Wanting the mountain line, the cold wind, the smell of pine and soil. It was all home. His home. The color of the sky was even the same pale, washed blue of dawn over the northwestern base where his family had lived. "Where they deep? Ed, you all right?" Callan's voice came from behind him, cautious. Bash didn't answer immediately. He couldn't. His heart was still caught in that echo of memory. He turned slowly, eyes scanning the others. They were getting their bearings, Taren flexing her hands, Rixer rolling his shoulders, Nyra already adjusting her scope to the sunlight. Rixer gave a low whistle. "Feels like I lost half my weight." He bounced once on his heels, then crouched and leapt straight upward. His body arced cleanly into the air, almost 5 meters before landing in a soft crouch. I could get used to this." Bash forced a breath. "Be careful. The gravity's lighter, but momentum isn't. You'll hit harder coming down." Nyra pulled up her wrist display, flicking the projection outward. The translucent grid hovered between them, a topographical map marked by shifting zones of red and orange light. 5 beast zones, she said. "We're in the middle, neutral ground. South zone is our closest target, roughly 2 clicks uphill, marked as solitary predators." "Perfect warm-up," Richter muttered, readjusting his hammer strap. Callan leaned closer to the map. "What about the others?" "West shows swarm activity, east is pack behavior. North and northwest, 2 minor individual types. Everything's spaced about 2 to 3 clicks apart, so we shouldn't draw overlap unless we screw up." Taren studied the terrain ahead, eyes narrowing. "Let's start south. If they're solitary, we can test the ground without risking a cluster." "Agreed," Bash said. The team began to move. The incline was steep, but in Kaelith's gravity, it felt effortless. Each step carried them meters higher. The dirt gave beneath their boots with a soft crunch, lighter than any soil Bash had felt in training. The vegetation grew thick and bright, tall, bluish grasses that shimmered faintly when brushed, releasing a scent like wet soil and rain. The silence of the mountain wasn't silence at all. It pulsed with faint life, chirps, distant howls, rhythmic rustles from unseen creatures. Rixer adjusted his grip on the war hammer. "Feels strange not seeing the Nexus walls." Leora nodded. "Feels strange knowing there aren't any." They climbed higher, the sun angling low and pale across the valley. The view expanded behind them, a stretch of ridges and rivers, clouds curling like white smoke. When they reached the peak, the map's marker pulsed beneath their feet, steady, certain. Yet the slope beyond was empty. "Nothing," Taren said, scanning through her targeting lens. "Map's wrong?" Rixer asked. Nyra frowned, adjusting her display. "No, coordinates match perfectly." Bash felt the faint pulse in his head again. SE's calm tone threading through the wind. "Migration data reflects historical averages. This region records Beast's presence across prior cycles. You are observing natural variants. He repeated it aloud. The map's predictive, not live. We're standing in a migration route, not an active zone. Callan gave a humorless laugh. So, we hike for the view. Not wasted, Nyra said, scanning westward. Next zone's closer, 15 to 20 minutes, downhill, pack density minimal. Richter grinned. At this gravity, call it 10. They turned downslope. The forest thinned quickly as they descended, the trees giving way to sweeping plains of golden grass. The air felt different here, cooler, drier, with an undercurrent of static energy that prickled the skin. Bash crouched near the edge of the clearing, motioning for the others to follow suit. Through the wavering heat haze, movement rippled across the far end of the valley. Massive shapes, dark and broad, lumbered through the field. Nyra adjusted her scope. Visuals locked. Approximately 100, maybe more. Large quadrupeds, herd pattern. Non-hostile posture. Taren leaned forward. Quadrupeds. Heavy mass, low stance, herd pattern. Probably herbivores. Bash focused, eyes narrowing. The creatures were huge, each easily 3 He's the size of any bison he'd seen on Earth. Their hides shimmered with iridescent patterns of bronze and silver that shifted when they moved. Each had 6 horns, 3 curving forward on either side like stacked blades. The ground trembled faintly as they walked. Richter whispered, "How do they even move that much mass on this gravity?" Nyra replied absently, "They don't have to fight it. They float on it." Bash thought, SE, classify. Tier 1, greater, herbivorous, high kinetic mass. Tend toward solitary feeding, but herd reactive. Aggression minimal unless provoked. Sap he'd risk significant. He nodded slightly, keeping the exchange silent. T1G, he thought, not aggressive, but one wrong move and the rest follow. We isolate one. No chain reaction. The team nodded. Years of drills had burned the procedure into instinct. They began to spread out. Bash signaled positions with quick hand gestures. Nyra, Callan, and Taren forming the high and mid-range arc. Richter, lower, and Dark taking the secondary flank. They moved silently through the grass, the sound muffled under the low wind. Bash felt every breath stretch longer, lighter in his chest. The low gravity made motion feel effortless, almost dreamlike. The isolated beast stood near the edge of the herd, separated by a shallow ridge. Its massive head dipped and rose in slow rhythm as it grazed, horns glinting under the white sun. They closed to within 200 meters. Positions, Bash whispered. Nyra knelt, her rifle settling against her shoulder. The faint shimmer of blue current pulsed along the barrel. Her ton imbuement primed. Taren checked her sidearms, both barrels clicking softly into place. Range synced. Callan unsheathed his blade, crouching beside a rock outcropping. Richter's hammer gleamed faintly as he took cover behind a low hill, ready to surge forward if the beast charged. Lower and Dark mirrored him on the other side, bows half drawn, fingers steady. The world felt smaller in that moment, sound fading, heartbeat slow and heavy. Bash crouched behind a ridge of stone, the red light of his Razorvein knives catching on his wrist. He drew one, feeling the balance, perfect weight, seamless design, the faint pulse of power under the surface. He glanced at his sidearm, secured, loaded, then at his team spread like shadows across the field. The herd continued grazing in the distance, unaware. The sky was cloudless, pale, the kind of silence that comes right before something breaks. Bash inhaled through his nose. The air tasted clean, sharp, alive. SC, online. Any advice? Do not miss. He almost smiled. Richter met his eyes from across the field and nodded once. Nyra adjusted her scope. Callan exhaled. The team was ready. Thank you for reading this chapter. Your support means the world to me. If you enjoyed it, please consider giving a thumbs up, leaving a positive review or a comment. It truly helps a debut author like myself. As this is my first novel, I am still learning, and I would love to hear your constructive feedback to help me improve. I'll do my best to reply to your comments. If you would like a better understanding of Bash's origin and family, check out my book Before the Genesis. It tells the story of Kyle and Abby and has some lead up right into this novel. Brundock Chapter 50. Razorvein Bash's hand dropped. The signal flashed through the team like a spark. Taren and Bash broke from cover first, sprinting low across the field. The air hissed past their ears, gravity too light to drag them down. The massive beast was already shifting its weight, the slow rhythm of its grazing giving way to stillness as it sensed movement. Taren knelt mid-stride and raised both sidearms. 2 clean bursts cracked through the air. Clang, clang. The rounds ricocheted off the beast's shoulder with sharp metallic rings. Sparks leapt from its hide. The creature's head snapped up. Its eyes locked on Taren. Then it charged. The ground shook as it lunged forward, its hooves carving deep grooves into the soil. For something that size, it shouldn't have been that fast, but in Kaelith's thin gravity, it crossed 100 meters in seconds. Its 6 horns cut through the air like a charging engine. Taren fired again and again, walking backward while unloading precise bursts. Each shot glanced off, leaving only shallow scorch marks along the beast's flank. "Down it!" she hissed, ducking left as it barreled past. The displacement when nearly threw her off balance. Before the beast could pivot, a flash of blue light streaked from the hillside. Nyra's rifle discharged with a deep whomp, the arc bursting across the creature's temple. The stun hit home. The beast froze mid-stride, limbs locking as energy rippled across its nervous system. It tripped, crashed chest first into the dirt, and plowed a trench 3 meters deep. The shockwave threw debris high into the air, a storm of dust and soil raining down over the field. Taren coughed, eyes stinging, but kept moving. The beast roared, low, guttural, and staggered back to its feet, shaking dirt and steam from its hide. Its focus snapped right back to her. "Eyes on me!" she yelled, sidestepping as Callan and Nyra shifted positions. Callan's bowstring sang. Then again, arrow after arrow flew, slicing the air. Each one left faint trails of energy. Tips glancing off they kied, nicking joints, deflecting near the neck. None sank deep. "Minor penetration only," he shouted. Leora and Dark appeared out of the haze, sprinting from opposite sides of Taren. Both leapt high, blades catching sunlight as they struck, sharp arcs of motion that crossed in midair. Their swords bit, slid, and tore shallow cuts across the beast's upper flank before both flipped backward, landing in perfect, low crouches. Blood, dark and viscous, trickled from the wounds, but the creature barely flinched. Ash was already in motion, running full speed toward the chaos. SC's voice was in his head, cool and precise. High durability composite dermis. Strike soft tissue, joints, eyes, throat folds. Aim small. Copy, he thought, shifting his path to circle behind the creature. He reached for one of the Razorvein knives, the metal humming faintly with restrained violence. Every motion felt slower in the lighter gravity, but his acceleration was unreal. 10 strides carried him 30 meters. The beast's head swung, trying to locate Taren again. Bash saw the angle open. Back leg, left side, tendon exposed just above the joint. Perfect. He threw. The knife spun once, twice, the crimson gleam flaring brighter, and struck clean into the back of the knee. SHHK. The effect was immediate. The imbuement activated on impact, the blade grinding deeper as the metal's inner vibration tore through flesh. The wound split wider with a wet crack, blood pouring down the leg in a red sheet. The creature bellowed and collapsed onto that side, the entire limb folding beneath its weight. "Hit confirmed," Bash called out. It tried to rise, struggling against its own mass. For a second, it succeeded, but only halfway. One leg crippled, its movement turned into a slow, lurching CR. Its chest heaved, then the sound changed, deeper, resonant, a rhythmic grunting that rattled the air. SC's tone sharpened. Vocal frequency spike detected. It's transmitting distress. Call for herd reaction imminent. "Rixer," Bash shouted. "Now!" The big man was already charging. Rixer tightened his grip on his hammer, the plane's steel head gleaming. "Time to shut this thing up," he roared, charging forward. He swung with everything he had. The impact landed like thunder, metal meeting bone in a sickening crack. The beast's head snapped sideways, a spray of dirt and blood bursting from the wound as the ground trembled beneath the force. The beast reeled, stumbling sideways, but it wasn't done. With a violent toss of its head, one of its horns hooked the hammer shaft. Rixer's eyes widened. "Ah, hell." The beast jerked, wrenching the weapon free and flinging it 50 meters into the air. The force sent Rixer tumbling backward, crashing hard into the dirt just beneath the creature's heaving chest. It reared back, one eye blood red, the other flashing with pain, and lowered its head. 6 horns leveled forward like spears. It was going to crush him. Bash was already moving. He drew another Razorvein in one fluid motion and launched it toward the charging skull. The red streak crossed the space in an instant. The blade buried itself in the creature's eye. The sound that followed was less a roar and more a collapse of sound itself. A deep, wet shudder as the knife dug in. The imbuement engaged again, drilling inward, tearing through nerve and bone and into the BR. Ainstem, the light in the creature's other eye flickered out. Its body locked, then fell. The ground shook as the massive frame hit, a wave of dust and pressure rolling across the plain. Bash's legs buckled. His chest jolted with a sudden shock, like a pulse of static slamming through his ribcage. He gasped, looking down at himself. "What the?" C's voice came quickly. He gasped, looking down at himself. "What was that?" "I sensed something," SC said after a pause. "It matches the signature of an essence absorption event but there's no record of activation or gain. Nothing unlocked. Bash blinked, still feeling the faint echo in his chest. So I absorbed something? Possibly. Or the system reacted as if you did. I'm not certain. He exhaled, the confusion settling into a quiet furrow. WN. Great. That's reassuring. Rixer groaned and rolled aside just in time as the creature's carcass settled beside him. You could have warned me, he muttered, wiping sweat and dirt from his forehead. Consider that your warning, Bash said, still scanning the beast. The rest of the team regrouped, weapons ready, forming a circle around the downed monster. Its breathing had stopped, but its sheer size was still unnerving up close. The hide was pitted and scorched from their attacks, blood seeping into the ground beneath it. Harvest required, as he said. Beast fragments are localized within the horn structure. Remove both sets for full value. Bash relayed calmly. SC says we need to cut off the horns. That's the beast fragment. Rixer blinked at him. You're joking. You mean those Haynes? He gestured at the massive 6-horn rack, each piece thicker than his torso. Afraid not, Bash said, drawing his dagger. 3 points, remember? Darik groaned. We're going to have to carry them? Bash crouched beside the head. We didn't come here to lose. The dagger slid into the joint at the horn's base, and to his surprise, it went in smooth, almost like cutting soft clay. The resistance dropped completely as the edge sliced through. The once-tough hide parted without effort. Either I've gotten stronger, he muttered, or this thing's durability drops to 0 after death. Within seconds, the first horn detached with a low hum. Then the next. Bash worked methodically, slicing through the joints until all 6 horns lay scattered across the dirt beside the beast's massive. He had. The moment the final one came free, the air around them pulsed. A faint white glow spread across the pile of horns, threads of light tracing their edges before converging inward. Then, in unison, the horns began to shrink, their shapes collapsing and folding into streams of gold that twisted toward each other. The light coiled tighter, merging at the center until the separate pieces fused into one single form, a small, polished beast fragment shaped like a curved miniature horn. Its surface shimmered with a soft inner pulse, gold fading slowly to amber. Bash reached out and caught it before it hit the ground. The warmth of it sank into his palm, a faint vibration humming beneath the smooth surface. Guess storage won't be a problem. Rixer exhaled. 1 piece, easier to count, harder to lose. A few quiet laughs followed, the tension bleeding away with the last traces of light. As the light trickled away, the massive corpse began to tremble. Its surface darkened, edges curling inward like paper burning in reverse. The flesh, the blood, even the bones began to disintegrate into fine ash, sinking into the ground below. Within moments, the entire beast was gone, absorbed into the soil as if it had never existed. The grass shifted back upright, erasing all trace of the battle. For a long moment, no one spoke. The wind moved through the field again, cool and steady, carrying the faint sound of distant life somewhere far beyond the ridge. Bash turned the small horn fragment over in his hand, watching the faint glow pulse once, twice, before fading. Well, he sighed, deep quietly, sliding it into his pack, 1 down. Rixer cracked his knuckles, staring out over the plains. About 100 to go. Nyra ejected her rifle's spent cartridge, slotting a new one in with a click. Next time, we aim for the eyes first. Bash smiled faintly, his voice low and calm. Exactly. Thank you for reading this chapter. Your support means the world to me. If you enjoyed it, please consider giving a thumbs up, leaving a positive review or a comment. It truly helps a debut author like myself. As this is my first novel, I am still learning, and I would love to hear your constructive feedback to help me improve. I'll do my best to reply to your comments. If you would like a better understanding of Bash's origin and family, check out my book Before the Genesis. It tells the story of Kyle and Abby and has some lead up right into this novel. Brunda.